The news just keeps rolling in, and for Helldivers, a full return to its ODST Xbox player numbers is looking further away than ever. And it's all hitting at the same time other titles are surging to historic highs. Now, I've got it all covered for you, including some dev comments and more, so stay tuned for everything. In case you're new here and you want to help support the channel, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell. And if you're on mobile, swipe left to reach the hype section and drop some love on today's upload, which is greatly appreciated. And now, let's get back into the latest from Helldivers. Alright, first things first, I wanted to thank those of you who reached out either via DM or over in our Discord asking and wondering what I was up to. I'm doing fine, nothing crazy going on except for back-to-back-to-back major projects hitting me square in the chops from my IRL job. And also, I needed a little bit of a break from content creation so I could just chill and play some games for once. And I've been splitting my time either between Arc Raiders and Battlefield 6. But yeah, again, I'm doing well and my batteries are all charged up again, so it's time to get in some Helldivers. Now, since I've been gone, I haven't logged more than a few minutes inside of Helldivers, so I was pretty much floored to come back, check out the galactic map, and start wondering what the hell was going on here. Now, as of the time of this recording, we have just under 3 days to go on the current major order to hold Andar and Astaroth Prime, which, by the way, are both buffered by multiple planets currently held by the Helldivers. So at this point, I don't know, has the Game Master team just given up and gone on vacation themselves? Because they might as well have told us to just go blitz Cyberstan, which, if you haven't taken a look at the map, you'd see why we can't even gain access to Cyberstan, because it is completely isolated with no FTL routes, but you get the picture. So I guess at this point, just go after whatever the hell you want to, because we've seen some pretty bad filler major orders in the past, but this one makes me ask why we have a current major order running at all. Know what I mean? Anyways, while I was away, Arrowhead posted a couple of additional vlogs and blogs from different studio devs, and yeah, I wanted to circle back around and briefly touch on these because they all kind of factor into today's final topic. But the first of these was from the game director Michael Erickson, to which the Mirror took a look at, quote, Helldivers 2 director explains why new content was prioritized over bug fixes. One of Helldivers 2's lead devs explains why the team has been adding new content instead of fixing bugs. I'm going to skip through much of the fluff and fast forward to this part. Quote, Helldivers 2 game director Michael Erickson has admitted that the game's development has hit a few snags due to Arrowhead's focus on new content over bug fixes. In a recent YouTube video, Erickson revealed that the game is slowly recovering from its issues after making some misguided changes. Quote, we've been starting to break at the seams, and it's not just in one place, unfortunately. It's in many different places at once, pretty much, he confessed, acknowledging that the team's eagerness to provide fresh content for players has led to bugs being somewhat overlooked, particularly in relation to the Illuminate foes who were still plagued by glitches that have been present since their introduction. Quote, the calls are coming from inside of the house, and now we are paying the price for this. That is why we are so focused right now on addressing this and rethinking a little bit about how we're developing the game in this live service environment. The Mirror goes on to finish with this. They say, it's heartening to see the game's team owning up to this, and frankly, it's quite understandable. Live service gaming has become the dominant model for multiplayer games, and it's easy to get caught up in it and prioritize the next big content update over crucial changes. Okay, first off, I think this is a great opportunity to drop some much needed praise, because praise is due here. But in this case, not at the studio. I'm going to direct this at the community. Players have been screaming out for Arrowhead to stop releasing content until they can get the game back into a stable and enjoyable state, which, by the way, is a complete 180 from what you normally see from a standard live service player base who just start going nuts when new content is not being delivered every few weeks or so. Now, how much of this is coming from, as this article says, inside the house? I honestly don't know, but we do know that as a studio, they don't shift course until things have gone from manageable over to catastrophic, which the game has been ever since Into the Untested went live months ago. And my gut feeling here is that they would have stayed on that content release roadmap had it not been for the community crying out that enough is enough, man, and it was time to put all that new stuff on hold, i.e. the paid stuff like war bonds. How much of this mountain of tech debt can they actually get through, and how long this timeline will be is a huge question surrounding Helldivers, especially when I am consistently seeing the same question about the game hard locking and potentially damaging PC and consoles alike, which has never officially been recognized by the studio. Another casualty of this back catalog of tech debt and lingering issues is that new functions and features that we would love to see come to the game have, unfortunately, also had to take a backseat to this current bug-fixing push. One of which Games Radar took a look at, quote, Helldivers 2 has no plans to add cross-progression, even though Arrowhead CEO says, quote, we'd love to, as other things take priority. Things are stressful for Helldivers 2 developer Arrowhead Game Studios at the moment, what with the current state of the multiplayer shooter. The devs are having to pick their battles in terms of improvements and updates, and that means progression across platforms is on the back burner. On the official Discord server, community manager Baskinator made the likelihood of seeing it quite clear. Quote, we have no plans to add cross-progression currently. She responded to another user asking about the feature. In a later comment, CEO Shams Georgiani expanded a little on the team's position. Quote, for what it's worth, we'd love to add cross-platform progression, but other things take priority. I'd agree with him. Disappointing though this is, it's an understandable position among Helldivers 2's problems right now. This call for cross-progression, along with things like new ship upgrades, an economy of unlocks to spend our samples on, and a more feature-rich weapon customization system are as old as Helldivers 2 itself. Now, would I love to see them? Absolutely. And I'm sure you would too, along with dozens of other additions, but since I exclusively play on PC, I honestly don't know how much use this feature of cross-progression would get. So, here's a question for you, my lovely viewers out there. If Helldivers 2 suddenly added on cross-progression, would you make use of it? Now, I'm assuming this would span between PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. So, yeah, drop me a comment and let me know yes or no if you would use it. And if you would, what are the platforms you would jump between? Because I am genuinely interested to see if this is a majority topic or if this is just some talking point coming from a vocal minority within the community. Okay, final question for you for today. Honestly, how well do you think Arc Raiders is doing right now? Well, apparently, it's knocking it out of the freaking park. Coming to us from Paul Tassi at Forbes, it says, quote, Arc Raiders slips past Helldivers 2 player count record. Arc Raiders is without a doubt the biggest surprise multiplayer story of the year, but as it turns out, that may include at least the last 2 years. A week after launch, Arc Raiders managed to hit a new peak of 462,488 concurrent players on Steam. Keep in mind out there, that's on Steam, not including console or Epic, which not only broke its own record, but also managed to pass up Helldivers 2's all-time peak concurrent player counts on Steam of 458,709 players. That was the biggest surprise multiplayer hit of 2024 and one of Sony's only multiplayer success stories in recent years, but Arc Raiders may actually be more impressive. Arc Raiders is developed and published independently by Embark Studios without a huge entity like Sony behind it. It's a wholly new IP where Helldivers 2 is, well, you see the 2 there. Arc Raiders is not the biggest new multiplayer hit of 2025, but again, context. That would be Marvel Rivals, but it is made by mega giant NetEase and uses one of the most famous IPs on planet Earth. Pressing pause on the article, that's a solid point here, and even another beacon of hope within the greater gaming sphere is that you can deliver big numbers along with a solid product and not be paired up with a mega publisher. Now, whereas Helldivers has Sony, and Tassi also mentions Marvel Rivals, which has NetEase backing it, Arc Raiders is completely developed and self-published by Embark. If we want a glimpse into Arc Raiders' future, Helldivers 2 currently has a peak player count of 32,138 nightly. No comment on whether that's good or bad, it's just what it is after that big launch 2 years ago. If we're talking about an Embark property itself, the Finals, which also launched 2 years ago with a peak of 242,000, now has 14,000 nightly players. So do with that information what you will. By the way, more on this in a minute because I do have some thoughts here. Both Arc and Helldivers are variants of the extraction genre, Arc being a more traditional PvPvE type, Helldivers 2 being purely squad-based PvE. Usually, when you start seeing breakout hits in a specific genre, the herd will start to follow. Surprisingly enough, Bungie now seems ahead of the game with its marathon extraction shooter having been in development for years. Oh, yeah, I can't agree with that one, Paul. It was originally supposed to release before Arc Raiders in September, but after a poor reveal, a worse alpha, and a plagiarism scandal, it has been delayed until 2026 and locked into closed NDA'd alphas. But despite the restriction, I'm hearing there have been a lot of improvements, so we'll have to see. Matching Arc or Helldivers, however, is unlikely. But who knows? There's simply no way this could have gone better for Arc. At least in the short term, it has a number of additions coming to the game. What its plans are for larger content updates in the future aren't yet clear, but with this kind of player base, they'll need to do a lot to move into persistent hit territory like the well-established Tarkov. Though that's another level of success entirely. Okay, links to all of these articles will be found down in the video description and pinned comments, but first things first, you may like it, you may hate it, you may just be indifferent to it, but Arc Raiders is currently laying it down. As of today's latest tweet, now touching over 700,000 CCUs or concurrent users, which are some huge numbers, and big congrats to them for that. But let's take a step back and look over the two, Arc Raiders and Helldivers 2. Now for starters, one is at its peak right now, right? It's new, it's fresh, it launched extremely polished and has connected for a lot of gamers, especially among those that would not normally dabble into extraction shooters. I would also like to point out that Arc Raiders has a very clear vision for what kind of game it is trying to be, meaning that its core vision for its gameplay loops and mechanics is resonating with a lot of gamers. On the flip side, we've got Helldivers 2, which is fighting against the tsunami of tech debt that was swept under the carpet, releasing new, untested, and broken content into the game, many times on top of the last busted update, until it finally just reached a point where the community requested that the studio go full stop until it was fixed, which I touched on earlier, but again, that's unheard of and usually the other way around. Helldivers 2 also has this bizarre internal studio struggle of what kind of game the devs are trying to make it into. Is it a player power fantasy driven horde shooter, which by the way appeals to the masses, racking up nearly 20 million units sold, or is it trying to become this super niche grunt fantasy pseudo milsim that appeals to a very small portion of the player base? Because when you've got that conflict ongoing within the studio itself, it then spills into the game, and that affects the end user experience. Actually, I'm working on a full deep dive into this very topic because it's crazy to think about where logic is kind of turned upside down in favor of, like I said earlier, the bizarre. And then, of course, there's the very present technical issues with Helldivers 2. Not saying that Arc Raiders is completely bug-free, because it isn't, but HD2 is to the point that players do not want to risk their hardware to get in a dive for fear that the next hard lock could do some real harm to their multiple $1,000 gaming rigs. I guess the million-dollar question here is, why did Arrowhead prioritize new content over fixing the crap that was clearly broken? I mean, I could sit here and give you 10 different reasons why, but probably the one that will resonate the most with viewers is that they were chasing the money. Because every time they released a new war bond, the game would instantly hit the top 5, if not the top spot, on the Steam charts for revenue generated. But yeah, overall, you've kind of got the perfect storm scenario here. Arc Raiders hitting and connecting with the worldwide player base and currently building momentum, in combo with Helldivers 2 struggling mightily with its ongoing performance issues, new content on hold, and internal struggles with the identity of what the game will and should be. However, with all that said, I've got to say that Helldivers 2 is a game that seems to have infinite lives, and each time that we see it hit historic lows where the studio is caught lying or stumbling around from broken update to even more broken update, which would all be enough to doom any other game in studio, Arrowhead just always seems to bounce back. And until I see that trend being stopped in its tracks, I'm just going to keep betting on them staging a comeback. But that said, each time it does one of these epic we are so dead moments, it slowly sheds off players, losing them to either apathy or to just other titles, like what we talked about today in Arc Raiders. But for Arrowhead, even player counts like we are currently seeing are still over what they had projected to be their best case scenario of 50,000 players worldwide. But here's where you get to sound off with anything Helldivers related. Drop me a comment, and of course I'll do my best to respond. Please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. Thank you to all of our current channel members, for without your support, content like this would not be possible. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer, signing off.